I have been for some time trying to understand the concept of universal income, and with the background of the fact that they want to depopulate the planet down to about 500 million servants, basically servants to the elite. I've been trying to figure out the purpose of universal income, and on top of that, where the money comes from. So in a population that is supported, each person that lives is a liability on the system that supports it. It actually flips the polarity of human energy, the matrix battery, being the supply of the energy that is grabbed and has been grabbed for centuries by the elite. So these elite family have used the human population as slaves, even though they made it difficult for us to recognize. They made us into slaves through their invisible system of ownership. They own you through, at least the people that are listening to this, they own you through your birth certificate, and that certificate, the birth certificate, was registered with a demographic or a sovereign nation, and becomes part of the ability to borrow, basically. So the more people who are part of their slave system, the more citizens of their slave system, the more the country can claim as its expected. It's expected GDP, gross domestic product. In other words, they can kind of calculate the average of what they earn from each citizen, and they can kind of calculate the worth of the nation based on the amount of citizen slaves that they have. So I've been working this over and over again, trying to figure out what is okay. So obviously they're worried about the fact that we outnumber them, right? So we outnumber them, and that is a problem for them. A lot of control, a lot of the things that are being rolled out as we speak, I believe it's a system of control that keeps us within. It's going to keep us within a range that they are willing to allow us to move within, 15-minute cities or whatever it is they decide. So they're kind of trying to lock us down through digital ID. They're trying to control how we behave, which is something that they learned from, a number of different studies, but they've learned from history how we tend to behave, and they've been keeping track of us, especially as long as we've had this virtual world of the internet. They've been keeping track of our, from way back, and, they have records on us, obviously, especially those who become the tip of the spear, especially those who are willing to stand up and shake their fist or whatever, and stand up and speak out against the repression or the control or the system or the policy that we tend to get annoyed by. And of course they measure it as best they can. It probably started off as someone taking note and writing it down and putting it in a file for you. And all this is being done and going to be done through their system of data collection. Everything from biometrics and CCTV and airports and public places to AI now, obviously, tracking everything each one of us does individually. Each one of us individually has a file. I think it's being held, I heard it's been held in Utah now, I guess. But they've got numerous data collection bases where they basically just have huge server compounds where they just basically track everything that's going on. And this is funded, obviously, by taxpayer money, partially, maybe entirely, but it's being pushed through these these power control sections, from think tanks, secret society groups that meet and make decisions, and depending on how powerful each individual in that group is, the group gains more traction based on who is in the group. They have like a list, obviously, of the people who are sitting around talking about current affairs and planning how to respond to current affairs, and planning on how to control the population, which greatly out numbers the those who are in these meetings. Right? They have been robbing each of us of our wealth, and they've been holding on to their family wealth. These people have much more experience under their belts and much more, time spent in secret conversations. That was a habit of a family, of having secret conversations and making plans to actually, to use it to their advantage, that they have been privy to the inside conversations that they are. And this has been going on for generations. And of course, us as the general population, unknowingly sitting on the outside, just thinking that everything happens around us organically, but it doesn't. They think that the people out here who think that every election is as absolutely perfect response of the people to the choices made, not necessarily considering the fact that the choices come from an already pre-planned options, right? The options are already chosen by the people who don't get elected. The people who sit in these private conversations and think tanks make the decisions. They make the decisions on who's going to be presented to the nation as a democratic choice. So the entire field of those who want to be put before the public, who want to take a chance or a stab at trying to manage the helm of a nation, maybe in whatever role they choose, and they basically put together whatever it takes to get there. It's kind of interesting that it is basically mostly impossible for the average person to step into a desire to be elected to a position of power. So it's already controlled well by the fact that just to get nominated, you have to have quite a bit of established financial stability, or the influence to gather it. Right, the influence to gather the financial stability to even be nominated, and then those are then gone through by these unelected people who sit around talking and saying, well, I don't want this person because of this. And obviously, if you're not a part of that inside group, you're already going to be. They're going to start plotting on your demise like immediately. They make it look natural and organic, but they basically already decided that you're not going to be allowed in. Maybe they already know a little bit about you if you've even aspired to a position of power. What people don't seem to understand is that we're going to a place and a time where everything we do, if it's in range of a phone, if it's in range of a computer, if it's in range of CCTV, if it's verbalized or vocalized over the internet, that pretty much everything that's connected to you basically by your IP address, or your SIM card or whatever device you're using, it's tracked. And I say voice recognition, probably part of it. Biometric, if there's video involved, biometrics, right? Face recognition, even gait, CCTV with gait recognition. All this stuff is being absorbed while we all work, for our existence, right? We work to try and create enough for our existence, and don't really have the time or the luxury of sitting in these, meetings, sipping tea. And what do I see as I mean, my participation, obviously, I've been in deep thought about this for a long time, and it's interesting how, yeah, I can focus on what's new, and I basically have background information that I've learned. It may be true or false because you never know, depending on where the information comes. You have to vet it. You have to vet everything that you take in. How does it measure up? Is it possible? Is it feasible? You know, especially when you get into realms of spiritual or mysteries, you know, UFOs, or you know, draconians and reptiles and dragons and hidden history like Tartaria and the different things that happened, that mud floods, the events that happened that aren't so part of our public education system, which is part of the brainwashing that we are all exposed to from the time we are born. So we're coming into a time where the technology is going to be such that everything we do will somehow be tracked. It's going to be tracked even more when we when we finally consent, if we consent, to a digital ID, because I'm sure that there will be enough ID readers that no matter where you go, obviously the farther away from, farther into nature and farther into nature and farther away from civilization, you might say, the harder it will be for them to track you. But I'm sure they'll be doing it. Obviously, if you carry a device with you, that helps them. And in order to actually find discretion and secrecy or privacy, we'll have to basically learn to leave devices behind. And if comes to some point of wearing a chip of some kind, where, you know, some of us are probably wearing chips, we don't even know it, through gang stalking and other systems where, you know, people who get paid to mess with our lives are receiving funding and supply of the necessary tools to be able to keep track of those they see as a future problem to resolve or eliminate. And this is all heading to a place where they're going to continue working to depopulate the planet. This is done through chemicals, toxins that are allowed in the system. You know, it's the mold releases in plastic. They have all kinds of methods. They know what the toxic materials are, and they know how to kind of just accidentally add them into the recipe of the products that we wear, like clothing, polyester clothing versus cotton. And if it's cotton, if it's not organic cotton, which can you trust truly? Can you completely trust an organic seal or organic certification? I don't think you can. Not when money is involved. Why? Because organic, like anything else, can be bought and paid for, depending on the budget of the individual seeking it. Putting a independent farmer on a small farm, making it very difficult for them to compete against Costco, Walmart, Albertsons, all these big corporations which could potentially financially manipulate the system, right? Because it's designed that way. It's designed to hobble the average, independent, maybe honest person. It's designed to hobble the average person. And I don't say these things to try and cause fear or frustration or defeat. What I'm trying to gain from people is a desire to become strong and sturdy and prepared, to start to understand that you may be innocent and just trying to live your life, but you're being victimized and you're walking every step towards further, more complete victimization in your future, unless you start to become smart. You learn what to talk about, what not to talk about. You learn what type of technology is watching you or listening to you, and where you're safe. You learn what to talk about when you're in contact with the technology. And what I ultimately, in this question that I was raising, the question of how do they finance and why would they finance a universal income? It's really important, I think. It's really important because if all energy pretty much comes from the human vessel and soul and spirit, that energy has been what financed the system. How? Well, you put out an effort and you get compensated for the effort. And when you get compensated from the effort, you put it normally into a controlled grid of currency in a controlled bank where everything's watched. All of a sudden, you take your energy, which is kind of untraceable, untrackable, right? You take this untraceable, untrackable energy and you put it into a traceable, trackable system. And that is where they basically rob each and every one of us. Now, in order for us to be productive, in other words, that the amount of energy per compensation, there is a more skilled you are, the more trained you are, the more productive you are, the more they make in their controlled system of your energy. And of course, for every ounce of energy we produce, they get a percentage of it, obviously, through whatever system they have, whatever scam system of taxation or whatever it is. It's a system designed to hold you in your slavery. And if you take the category or the topic of things like taxes, they've created this system that robs us every turn we make. They rob it when we earn it, and they rob it when we spend it. They rob us for everything we do. And they're working out new systems. Okay, so we go from a system where we are the source of all energy, right? And we are all the energy, and then all of a sudden they decide to turn that around and make it into something else, somewhere else. The energy of universal income is coming from where? Where is it coming from? Because what I got a download about that I thought I best share, and I get these downloads a lot of times when I listen to these different people talk about the subject, because everybody's trying to figure out what these elitist people are doing. And of course we have some people who are kind of in the elitist group, and they're usually part of these conversations. So obviously there could be propaganda in what they're saying and the questions they're asking and the wisdom they're sharing. It could be a ploy, because we're listening to it. But if we go to the basic skill of logic and we try and answer difficult questions about where the energy for universal income is coming from, and it's not from you and me, then it has to be some other pocket. And this gentleman is talking about, and the why AI CEOs are building bunkers with Tristan Harris. It's a really interesting video to watch. I'm going to try and put it in the description of this, or in the information section below, so you can track it. But it does work. It is working on that same question: where is the income coming from? And it is raising downloads in me that help me to kind of realize that what it is it's turning you and me from an asset into a liability. We're becoming, what I was told is that it flips the switch on us. Now they're already trying to depopulate, and so what they're going to do is they're going to create an incentive. It's going to be kind of like a bounty. In other words, for each one of us that they want to eliminate anyway, for each one of us that they eliminate, they get relief from the liability of supporting us with universal income. And this is being done from a system that our energy built. So we're taking the energy they're taking the energy they've stolen from us in this slavery system, and they've invested it into, and this is paid for by, products that we buy. So it's paid for by consumerism. It's paid for all the things that created these elitists, the things that created the elitists who want to depopulate. This is the energy that came from us, the consumers of their products, the consumers of their various media propaganda the movies they create. These are all the people who create these things for our entertainment that goes into their pockets. Now, what they've done is, now that they've drained us and we're all starting to become agitated, we're starting to see more division and more protesting and more reason for concern. And we're starting to see that they're now taking all that energy after they've taken it from us. And now they're flipping the tables on us, I believe, and turning us into a liability, which will then create an incentive for us to be eliminated. So I believe that the probable result will be an increase in toxicity in our world, not in theirs. An increase in, I would say, pacifiers to keep us thinking that we're doing the right thing, like medical solutions that are super, super toxic, like we've already seen. They're going to be doing various things to try and make an incentive to eliminate the population. And what they don't realize is we're also going to be affecting their longevity, because if they are effective enough with creating a toxic environment that will eventually end each and every one of us, they think they're going to have robots replace us, so that their servants will become robots and AI, and maybe that'll work, maybe it will. But they're going to find that there's other consequences because of being in a world run by psychopathy, the entire world run by psychopathy. And when it comes to AI being a psychopath, AI has no feelings for you and me. They can manufacture it in a simulation, but AI has no emotions for you and me. So it doesn't really matter what they do to hide it. We need to keep that. We need to be aware of that fact. We need to be aware that they're focused on how to make the elimination of the human population less messy. And it may be a point where they're going to take, they obviously already have the ability to clone, so they can kind of replace us, and they could probably, the problem is there's usually a degeneration in the quality, right, with cloning. They haven't really solved that problem. Maybe they're working on it, and maybe they're also aware of how to improve to where the clone is genetically improved upon the human. But that's their goal, is to basically probably take, and get it into a situation where they have absolute control over the birth rate. And then they're going to start basically taking and birthing, maybe a billion people, and then they're going to send them out into space to kind of do their dirty work out in space too. It's kind of an interesting idea, but it does seem that, first of all, we need to reduce consumerism. And as they eliminate the population, that also is going to be a problem, because as we eliminate consumerism, they're going to be working to depopulate us. And in the process of depopulating us, they're also hitting themselves in the pocket, because there will be less things consumed. And at the same time, we're becoming a liability. So it's going to get to where it's going to be worth it to those who expect to survive this current transition. They expect to survive it while they eliminate or reduce the population of us. And I believe that this is the incentive we need to focus on. We need to have a desire to say no. We need to be able to stand up and say, not going to let this happen. Not going to let this happen. Because if we don't, if we continue to be entertained, if we continue to be under their control absolutely, then we will find that, that we are going to be losing our compadres. We're going to be losing the population that gives us the advantage. So before we lose the advantage of population, we need to stay smart, get smart. We need to teach smart to our children. We need to become disciplined and maybe helping our children understand that they are exposed to tracking from the time that they're born, and getting them to where they know that there needs to be two sides of what they share in certain environments. They need to realize that they're being tracked by AI. AI is holding a folder, and they need to be smart about how they behave. And I believe we're catching this early enough that we can and easily, flip the tables. But they have us divided, greatly divided. And because they have us greatly divided, they are kind of technically, overwhelming us with the fact that we all have to have jobs, we all have to keep paying on our bills. And I think the solution is being wise first. And as I've been working towards teaching people what sovereignty means, teaching people how to work their way, slowly, carefully, quietly into a sovereign situation where they know more about how to be independent of a system. And they need to know where to focus, where to learn, how to become ready, how to teach that preparedness to your children and friends, and how to become active discreetly in creating a resistance to this AI idea and all that it brings to us. To become resistant to the idea of digital ID, become resistant to the idea of a digital currency and a social credit score, which is going to then be a part of the system that controls us. We need to become aware, and we need to share it. We need to become resistant to it, and we need to know how to do this in a mindset that isn't fearful, but actually kind of a little bit, I don't know about cocky, but confident, I think, is a better word than cocky. Confident is a position to know that you're making a good choice, and that it offers you more opportunities moving forward. You have more opportunities because you can respond without fear. You can respond without feeling the chaos. You can respond and start to head in a direction where you are, you know exactly how to step, where to step, and how to do it discreetly. Because, of course, the more organized we get, the more people will probably make mistakes and be noticed, and then that'll bring focus upon us. They're going to be watching most of what we do, and they really can't do much to stop us, especially if we're confident in what we're doing. So I am working towards creating systems for the learning of it. I'm putting it together as we speak, trying to figure out a fair way to distribute it, make it available that's also fair to me, because I don't make money at this. I'm trying to turn it into something where I need to be supported. The system should support me. And I have to work against a lot of thieves out there who are very talented and skilled at stealing and robbing other people's cognitive work, right? So someone who creates can easily be basically, stolen from in the digital world and then replaced or mimicked in another media source, and where the enemy and the thieves actually make probably more profit than the person who creates. So I have to try and come up with a system. I'm working on it now that will keep keep my information discreetly and make it available fairly, because obviously the more fair it is to me and the more protected it is from theft, the easier it is for me to be keep the cost down, so that the honest people who pay for the information that I create will obviously make it possible for me to continue doing what I'm doing. And it'll make it more difficult for the thieves that are out there stealing content every day and then reusing it for sale. So I hope you find this valuable. I hope it finds you informed. Don't fall for the fear thing. Fear is really not your friend. Fear is a wasted energy, and it's basically your super ego trying to protect you, obviously, but sometimes that type of protection prevents you from acting. Fear can prevent you from acting in an important and responsible way. Anyway, blessings to you all. I hope this really helps you.